Regular study session of the Independent City Council for Monday, October 26, 2020. We have quite a full agenda this evening with a number of presentations and staff reports. Before we begin on that, however, I'm going to move down to our information only item, our Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association certification that's going to be presented to our city clerk, Becky Behrens, this evening. So if you would please step forward and introduce yourself and proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Julia Porter. I'm the Deputy City Clerk for the City of Blue Springs, and I'm here on behalf of the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association to recognize your City Clerk, Becky Behrens, for earning her Missouri Registered City Clerk certification. Becky was initially hired in the City Clerk's office as the Administrative Specialist 3 with the City of Independence in October of 2014 and became the Assistant City Clerk in June of 2017. Becky was promoted to City Clerk in May of 2019. She began her City Clerk's educational journey by joining the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association in the Western Division. After attending many dedicated hours of educational sessions over the next several years, she has now earned her Missouri Registered City Clerk certification from our state association. Knowing the importance of promoting the general welfare of her city's governmental operations, Becky will continue to strive towards performing services that best meet the interests and needs of the public as efficiently and effectively as possible, ever improving administrative techniques used in the operation of municipal governments while implementing all that she has learned through the City Clerks Association over the years. Becky believes that education is the key to serving as the best city clerk she can be, so her educational journey has not ended with this certification. She will continue to work towards earning the next levels of certification throughout her career as city clerk. Your city clerk, Becky, has worked very hard to attain the Missouri Registered City Clerk certification. This certification requires a combination of education and experience, and Becky is to be commended for her perseverance in achieving this goal. Additionally, you as the elected officials are to be commended for your continued support of Becky as she has worked towards this certification. It clearly demonstrates that you recognize the knowledge that she receives at the state and local educational sessions is of great benefit to you, to your city staff, and to your citizens. I'd like to congratulate Becky for this hard-earned achievement of her attaining this certification and as she continues her commitment to lifelong learning through her career as a city clerk.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Becky.
Oh, okay.
Did you want to make an acceptance speech?
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Thank you for coming and making the presentation. Becky, congratulations. You do such an excellent job, and we're very proud of you for pursuing this certification and all the hours that it takes and all the hard work to be a true professional. So thank you so much. Okay, moving on to our presentations. Our first is Homeless Strategies and Independence. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, as we're all too painfully aware, homelessness is an increasing issue in our community. Earlier this year, in a pre-COVID world, it was actually our Parks Director, Eric Erfer, who brought to my attention the increased population among the homeless in our city parks. And at that time, I asked several different department directors, along with our Assistant City Manager, Mark Randall, to begin taking a look at that. And that's really ballooned into a multi-front issue and approach. And so tonight I asked Mark to come in and give the council an update on that group's work, understanding that that is a very limited aspect of an overall multifaceted issue. But tonight Mark's going to give you just a little bit of an update on some of the ideas and approaches we've been looking at, and I know he's got others here to help him as well. So Mark, if I could ask you to come forward and update the council.
All right, thank you, Zach. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Mark Randall, Assistant City Manager, and I'm here to talk about homelessness strategies in Independence. And if you look at this first slide, I got to point out that it doesn't say solutions. It says strategies for addressing homelessness. I wish that we could claim that we figured it all out, this problem that is vexing the whole world, but we haven't quite figured that out, but we do have some strategies that we've identified here that we want to make you aware of, how we can try to address homelessness in Independence. So, right away I'm going to have to ask Meg for help, because it's not advancing. Well, as Zach said, well, Meg is running over here. Oh, let's just do that. Got it? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, as Zach had pointed out, you may recall that some of you that last February, I believe it was, you had a presentation from CSL along with Truman Medical Center and the Greater Kansas City Coalition to End Homelessness that was talking about homelessness on the rise in the Kansas City metro area, including in Independence. That was pre-COVID. Since then, it's gotten nothing but worse. And so we have noticed that numbers of homeless are on the rise. The reasons include, as it says on the slide, the COVID impact on the economy has played a role, and we've seen some increased migration from Kansas City into Independence. So local impacts, as our park director has pointed out, included more camps, more homeless in city parks, on public and private property, as you're well aware of, and more people living in vehicles in parking lots, which points also to the fact that there's some economic aspects to this. So the city manager, as he said, he directed me to chair up a interdepartmental task force to try to take a look at some strategies. And if I could just take a quick minute, I just want to give a shout out to the people that participated in that. Police Department, we had Chief Brad Halsey, Major Ed Turner, Officer Matt McLaughlin. Parks and Recreation Tourism had Eric Erfer and Morris Heidi. Community Development, Tom Scannell and Jordan Elena. Health Department, Christina Heinen. Fire Department, Doug Short and Dante Glenecki, our Emergency Services Director, Division Director. And Municipal Services, Lisa Phelps. So thanks to all of them for being part of that task force. So in addition to meeting the task force, we also tried to explore what some of the best practices are for addressing homelessness. We had conversations with several community partners in Independence and outside Independence. Some of those community partners, Community Services League, Salvation Army, Habitat for Humanity, Jackson County Land Trust, a new organization, nonprofit that's formed up called HOOPS, the Greater Kansas City Coalition in Homelessness, and several faith-based organizations, community mental health services also. So anyway, thanks to all of them. And we also did exploration of opportunities for regional cooperation. And in this, I know that members of the City Council have also been involved trying to talk to your counterparts in our neighboring communities about how we might be able to do things on a regional basis. So our conversation sort of boiled it down into three main areas to try to address this. The first was talking about the outreach team and what it might look like. Second was talking about services and support, and the third was talking about housing. Very often, people tend to jump to one or the other, thinking that that's the solution, but really it's a coordinated effort of all these things have to come together to really make it work. So, talking first about the outreach team, what would the best practices be for an outreach team in Independence? Well, you want to have law enforcement representation on that outreach team. You want to have service providers represented, mental health professional there. You want to have a social worker there for referral and follow-up. And one of the more novel ones, a fire department community paramedicine professional. This is a brand new thing. It's kind of part of the new 21st Century Fire Service that you may have read some things about, that it's a new mission for fire departments around the country where they get involved with community paramedicine, where they can reach out in the community, be involved in the community, and help with problems like homelessness. So how does Independence compare to that, let's say, ideal or best practices? Well, the police department has been very, very active, as you know, in our outreach team efforts. And I'd like to ask Chief Halsey and Officer McLaughlin to come up here to talk a little bit about their experiences on that. It's very apropos right now because thanks to Proposition P, we have an opportunity to really ramp up our efforts in this regard, both on the community services side, which is where our outreach efforts have been up till now, but also the new community response teams that Chief Halsey is looking to form. So if you could come up, Chief, and tell them a little bit about what you're doing now and how Proposition P is going to ramp it up.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Chief Brad Halsey. Briefly, I'll just tell you where we're at and looking forward with the Prop P money, how that's going to benefit us. I think more importantly, though, when Officer McLaughlin comes up here, he's out here every day doing this work. He can get everybody a snapshot of what he does with other stakeholders in the community. I fear he'd be better to hear from me on that. So currently in our community services unit, we have two vacancies out of the general fund. We had Officer Jody Grooms. If you guys didn't know her, she did phenomenal work too. She was partnered with Officer McLaughlin. She left to do work in the private sector. So that leaves Officer McLaughlin. He does everything every day. So I don't know how he keeps up. I always check on him and say, hey, if you're getting overwhelmed, let me know. His attitude is always, I got it, and I'll just keep moving forward. So, down the road, when the Prop P money, how that's going to benefit the community, it's going to do it in multiple ways, but specifically to these issues, I will tell you, the community response team that we have talked about with Prop P, that's going to be a power squad of officers that will come in and work during the high volume times, early afternoon into the evening. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, it'll prevent backlogging, hopefully, of calls, so we can have officers out in the community more, not dealing with backlogs. But secondly, most importantly, we can assign those officers to community meetings, business meetings. Right now, honestly, we don't do a very good job at that because we have one in community services, and those are usually during the peak times for calls for service. So they're going to be able to go out to these meetings, figure out, it may not be a police problem, but as a liaison with other, city departments, for example, they may go to them and say, okay, this is a problem, maybe weeds, or it may be a police problem, but we need to hear, it could be a homeless issue that they're having. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think we all are, because that's going to give us more opportunities to get out in the community, figure out what problems we're having, and try to start dealing with those issues. The other thing we talked about is adding crisis intervention team officers. We have one right now, that's David Abraham. We need to have more in that position. And I think, not knowing how this is all going to work out, if you ask me tonight, but what we envision, or I envision, community services may be combined with our public information officer. We have one officer that does that. But also, I like to add additional officers to community services that go out every day and they speak with the homeless population to figure out who needs services, build that trust and communication with them. Because again, I've always said there's a couple different elements of homeless population. Those that are willing to accept services and try to get back on their feet. There's actually three. There's a group that this is how they want to live, and the third group is a criminal element. We're going to deal with them differently, and Matt can speak to that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to have Officer McLaughlin come up and speak to what he does every day, and you guys can ask him any questions, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Officer Matt McLaughlin. I'm our lone officer in our community service unit right now. Some of you have had the opportunity to go out with me, and a few more folks are going to be able to here soon. One of the biggest things that I was tasked with when I took this position here almost 2 years ago was to go out and have contact with the homeless community and see what I could do to make a positive change and a positive impact for them and the rest of our citizens in the city. And it has been a very eye-opening experience on a lot of levels. But how this whole thing comes about is we partner with Community Service League, representatives from several of the local shelters and different organizations, and we go out and we go back in the woods, we're under bridges, we're in a lot of places, most people don't want to go. And we find these folks and we get to know them. And as a police officer, sometimes that's a difficult thing to bridge that gap, because a lot of times they don't want to talk to me initially because they've had experiences, and their first response is they're automatically going to jail because they've done something wrong. So we build some rapport with them and work with them in getting them into services. We have pretty good success doing so. As the chief mentioned, we do have some folks that don't want services, and with those folks, you know, depending on the circumstances, we handle those differently. And as he also mentioned, we have the portion that's a criminal element, and those folks, we try to handle it differently as well. The biggest thing is there's a balance between making sure that we're trying to do our best to meet their needs and get them into the services that they're entitled to get them back on their feet. I know a lot of you guys have had countless emails and stuff back and forth with me, but are there any questions or anything regarding what I do or what we're trying to do or anything like that?
Are there any questions from the council for Officer McLaughlin? Okay, I think we're all pretty aware of what you do, Officer McLaughlin, and you know, you're just incredibly available to us. I know that, and responsive. So we appreciate that very much, Chief.
Madam Mayor,
Uh-huh.
may I ask you one question? Just first of all, let me just say I enjoyed my time with you. You taught me so much, and Captain Durst and Sergeant Scholl did a wonderful job in addressing and showing me some of the challenges that you face. And so one of the questions I asked you then, and I'm going to ask you tonight in front of our council, is what challenges you in your day-to-day that we should be talking about to support you better? I mean, if there's anything else that we should be providing for you or to you, and I gave you weeks now to think about it. So I'm asking that you come forth with a bold
Absolutely.
response. Okay, don't hold nothing back.
Honestly, a lot of these things are things that I've discussed with Mr. Randall when we've had our meetings, and a lot of them are going to be laid out here in his presentation too. But I think making our team bigger and more, composing of more community partners to make things more successful. Obviously, as the department gets the staffing level to give me more people, that will help greatly. One of the things that I've talked to Mr. Randall about, and I think he's going to discuss too, is different facility options in our city that we are currently lacking. For us right now, to currently get people into services, we usually have to go down to Kansas City, Missouri, whether it be for a shelter or a day center or for the crisis center. All those types of services are down in Kansas City, so it still can be done, but it makes things take that much longer to get folks down there, because sometimes access and transportation is a little harder.
Do you think that if we, and I don't know what's available to you, but is there like mental health courses that are available to you? Not long, extensive things, but seminars, coursework that we can, as a department, as a city, can pay for you to go through and to help expand your abilities as well in the field? Is that something that is available to you? Is that something you'd like to do?
Myself personally, I've been a crisis intervention officer for 10 plus years now, and I've been through all the crisis intervention training that they offer for police officers, and I also have a psychology background, so this is kind of right in my passion. We actually have several officers, a good chunk of our officers, that have been through at least the basic crisis intervention training, and I know every year they work on sending as many as we can through it. So that training is a great one that I think we need to continue to get people through.
Okay.
I know when we do our annual block training and stuff to keep our continuing education credits up, mental health, de-escalation, those kind of things are always trainings that we have in there. I think those are very important just to make sure that we can communicate with folks. So I think we're on the right path. I think just the more we can get, the better.
Well, and I appreciate that, because you showed me and made me aware that a lot of the mental health issues that we're facing, it's not just one path or one stream. We're finding that the challenges you face out in the community, they're pretty complex. And so if you come across something that you need to bring that to us so that we can help get that available to you, okay?
Thank you, sir.
But you're awesome. I appreciate everything you do for our community.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, I kind of want to go off what you just said. I want to commend Officer McLaughlin for what he does every day. He's changed the way we do things. When I was a young officer, how we dealt with these issues is completely different, and it's the right way to do it today. He's got the respect of officers in the field. They will call him. Him and Jody, Officer Grooms, stood this thing up, and I gave him an impossible task when we signed him. I don't have the answer. I don't think anybody does, but figure out how to make it better, like you said, and I just want to commend him for what he does every day. I don't know if Mrs. Pratt is going to speak of this, but I'm going to speak. I'll say it too. When Officer McLaughlin speaks about what's needed, we need crisis beds. That's what we need. Not just here. That's in Eastern Jackson County. I know Mayor and I have talked about it. I've talked about it with a lot of different council members in the past. And I think the second thing is there has got to be a change in state and the federal government. They need to fund this issue better. If they're even funding, what they're doing now, it's not enough. So I think we need to go to the state every year and legislation and push for them to help with this issue, because it's not going to get any better. Unfortunately, in our community, we have a lot of people that have mental health. They need treatment. There's a lot that we can impact, and we got stories of how we can impact that. But really, that's what I wanted to say on that. If there's any questions for me, I'll take them. If not, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Randall.
Madam Mayor. Chief, how many crisis intervention officers do we have that are trained? Are we about half with the department, would you guess?
So thank you. I was going to address that. So here's my look on this. We don't mandate that training.
Right.
Because you got to have people that want to do that training. But I believe the last time I checked, I believe it's over 70 officers, and I think it may be even closer. And Matt, I don't know if it's anywhere from 70 to 80 that have had CIT training. We've had, our SROs have been to UCIT training. They have veteran CIT training. I mean, several officers have been through more than just the basic CIT, but I'm proud to say we do have a lot of officers that have attended that training because it's important.
Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to Matt too. You do a hell of a job. Was out with you one time off a 24 highway and river there when Jody was still here. You guys did a phenomenal job, and this is a heck of a job for one individual to do. So whatever we can do to help support the PD and our outreach teams, we're here for you.
Yeah, and I want to commend Captain Durst and Sergeant Scholl.
Yeah.
I know that they've been out with him a lot, and there's a lot of other officers. If he calls, they'll come, but I want to commend them for their leadership and support of Officer McLaughlin as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, so as you see, on the outreach team, there definitely is a need for still having a law enforcement component to it, and we're really now at a great opportunity we can ramp up our efforts there, both on the community services side and on the community response team side of things. And so we're really looking forward to being able to get them more resources thanks to Proposition P. Next thing on there is, you recall, it said service provider representatives, and we've been fortunate, blessed to have CSL going out, Community Services League representative has been a regular member of that team. Amber Bauer primarily going out there with Matt, and so that is another one of the boxes we can check that we currently have on our outreach team. The mental health professional, everybody has said, and Chief did allude to it, the need for mental health professionals as part of the outreach team. And one of the really exciting things about where we are today is we have the opportunity now to really increase that component of the team by virtue of the fact of this grant that we've just recently received through Mid-America Regional Council Shared Services Initiative, which I know the city manager has told you about that Shared Services Initiative several times in the past. This is one of the ways where it's bearing fruit, that we're going to have this grant that's going to allow us to ramp up our mental health professional presence on our outreach team. So what I'd like to do is ask Julie Pratt to come up. She's with Comprehensive Mental Health Services, and she's going to explain a little bit of how they are currently involved with us and how they're going to be able to ramp up thanks to this new shared services grant. So Julie, if you wouldn't mind?
Hello, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and my staff are really appreciative of Matt as well. So apparently everybody's thrilled with the job that he's doing, and we do have an excellent relationship with the Independence Police Department, which is not mirrored across the state. So that is something to be mentioned here tonight. A great relationship that our mental health center has with our local police departments is not echoed across the state. So we're really appreciative of our relationships. Comprehensive Mental Health Services currently has a community mental health liaison, which does work with all of our area police departments to help divert some of their calls that they deal with, those that are dealing with behavioral health issues in the community. That is funded by the Department of Mental Health, but that's been in place for a number of years now. The issue with that is one individual that is to work with all of the area police departments: Independence, Blue Springs, Oak Grove, Grand Valley, Sugar Creek. So it's one individual that shared along multiple departments. A little over a year ago, we decided at Comprehensive Mental Health Services that Independence needed a little more focus. So we went ahead and added into our budget a co-responder, another individual to work just with the Independence Police Department. We also added one in with Blue Springs as well. So she has been in place just a little over a year and worked on developing that position specifically to work in relationship with the Independence Police Department, going out on calls with those officers to help alleviate their response time and focusing on just those individuals that are dealing with behavioral health issues and allowing them to focus their time on what their jobs really are. Truth be told, we could use several more of those positions in Independence. I just don't have the ability to continue to add those positions without funding for the backup of that. This grant that we've received through Mid-America Regional Council was a coordinated effort with the Independence Police Department, Blue Springs, Lee Summit, Comprehensive Mental Health Services, and Rediscover. It was a long shot. This is a federal grant, and I was just amazed that we were able to get it, and I think it was the coordinated effort with all of those agencies that allowed us to get that. So that will allow us to add another position within the Independence Police Department. We have the position within Blue Springs. It does allow for another position within the Blue Springs Police Department. I do not think Blue Springs needs two, so I think will allow us to give another half of that position to Independence. So I'm looking at another 1.5 position for the Independence Police Department for that position as well. So we're really excited about that and hoping to continue to grow the work that they're doing. I know the crisis centers have been mentioned. We do have the crisis center available through Rediscover, which is down in Kansas City. There has been some just very recent rumblings about the interest in expanding those in the state. Funding has been the one issue with that. I do know that there has been a crisis center that's been opened recently down in Springfield through Burrell, and I've reached out to that agency just to kind of get some background, some information. It's my understanding their funding has come from some of the county, the city. I am interested in going down there and meeting with that CEO and touring that facility to see what that looks like and getting more information on that so I can just get some background on how that's been able to get started. So I'm kind of interested in where that's going, where we can get more information on it. I do know that there was supposed to have been an Eastern Jackson County Crisis Center when the original one in Kansas City was started. Funding has just been the issue with getting that expansion piece started. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I could go on and on about mental health services. So,
Are there any questions for Julie? Julie, and this, maybe we can say this to the end, but you might have, this is what might work, or this is what typically we've had success with in seeking state or federal funding. And normally what we're trying to do in Jeff's area is prevent funding from being taken away from us. It's very difficult to go and request funds being added, but I don't think there's a legislator in Jefferson City who doesn't understand the need for these types of services, especially now. So I know you and I have met several times about this, and we brought together a group of hospital administrators and other health professionals, Chief Halsey, some council members, to talk about this, and the need for some kind of mental health urgent care, where our officers or somebody at Community Services League or somebody else comes in contact with an individual who doesn't belong in the emergency room, certainly doesn't belong in jail, but just needs a place to be and get some help in a crisis situation. So the question always comes back to funding. I mean, who's going to pay for this? I mean, how are the hospitals supposed to fund, these beds? And the question always just comes to a dead end, whereas it comes to who's going to pay for it and how much is it going to cost. So what I started saying is, what we need is, how much money do we need? What is it going to be used for? And who are we going to go ask for that money from? And this will, I'm not putting any odds on our success in doing this, but we need to get very specific. I know that if we were to go to any one of our elected representatives in Jefferson City or in Washington, D.C., or if we were going to go to any of the lobbying organizations, our own lobbyists or Missouri Municipal League or National League of Cities, those are the questions they're going to ask. How much money do you need? What's it going to be used for? And where is it going to come from? So if we can answer those three questions, we can start putting together, some kind of request. And as you say, reaching out in our region and getting some regional support for those kinds of things.
Yeah, and there's two different models to look at as well. So I've started exactly what you're talking about, that preliminary piece. How many beds would we need? Is it urgent care? Is it just like what the crisis center is doing now in Kansas City? And putting that together to figure out exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, thanks.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And just to follow up, is there a distinction between grant money or potential monies that are available at the state level for mental health, and is that different than addiction? I mean, do they view it that way?
It's a loaded question these days.
I know.
For some of us, it is different. For comprehensive mental health services, it is not. They do lump it all together. So
they do.
We have very large substance use programs and have 2 residential programs that go with it. There are some mental health centers that do not have any substance use services at all. But ours is lumped all together in one pot of money.
You think it'd be better if it was separated out? Because not
No, I
every
don't.
addiction issue is
Yeah.
a mental health issue.
They cross over.
Yeah,
75% of our substance use clients have a co-occurring mental health issue.
okay. Well, it's interesting. I'm just thinking in terms of strategy, but I didn't know if there was monies for one and the other, if they just see it all. And
They cross over and intermingle
Okay.
75% of the time.
all right, thank you.
The problem with grants, and we've certainly seen this in our police department and all your other departments as well, but we get a grant, we hire the people, the grant goes away, and so do the people. And that's just how it is. We really grants are great, and we're happy when we get them. It's fantastic, but it doesn't.
Well, we're fortunate these days in the setup with how we do things. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, but that is what we're certified as now. It's been a demonstration project that was supposed to go 2 years. It was supposed to end June 30th of 2019. We have been extended since then. I can't tell you how many times. It's been such a successful project. It's cost report based, so all of our budgeting and finances and our reimbursement rates are different agency to agency, and it's based on cost. So if I bring in a new position, grant funded, when I go do my cost report the next time, I loop that in there and my reimbursement rate adjusts. So things are very different, so I'm not worried about these positions going away. I will wrap them into my next cost report.
Yeah, okay.
So we're fortunate in that aspect.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Part of the funding, is there any ability to charge Medicaid, Medicare for any type of that to help subsidize somewhat of this
Yes.
cost?
Yep, if somebody has Medicaid, I would be able to, if I get, approval to wrap that into my CCBHC services, I would, and somebody had Medicaid, I'd be able to bill and be reimbursed for it.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Julie? Okay, moving on. We have a lot to get through. That's a,
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll pick up the pace here just a little bit.
no, it's a great topic, but
Yes, and I should mention that last week I was talking to Julie, and she said that in anticipating some of those conversations you've had in the past and anticipating your question, she actually was going to be doing some digging into some old files to find out about how many beds that sort of thing might be needed to get the idea of how much cost it would be. See if we can take advantage of some of this energy. Anyway, going back to the outreach team, next thing you talk about is social worker. And, that might be something that this grant can help work with. CSL provides a little bit of that follow-up. We're just going to have to see how that one goes. That isn't a gap in our current service, not having that social worker part of the team to do evaluation, referral, and follow-up. But we do now have some assets now that we didn't have before with this new grant. So that one might be something we can add. And again, the fire department, talking about community paramedicine, Chief Short has been doing a lot of research in the literature, and that will probably be something we'll be bringing back up for you to take a look at in a future meeting. It's really great because you think about it, paramedics, they every day go and interact with people in crisis, and so they're really great. The skills they have could really help us on this team. So going on to the next element that we talked about after the outreach team, was talking about services and support. And I think we all know that there's many services available in Independence to help the homeless with a variety of issues. Again, social worker is maybe a gap, having somebody that can do that follow-up and referral, referral and follow-up. But there are a lot of services, and you know them as well as anyone. As has been mentioned, there's no mental health crisis center locally. There is one in Kansas City. It's too far away for our practical use. It would be great if we had one closer. Another thing that has come up from all these community discussions is what would be called the drop-in center in Independence for showers, laundry, access to various services. The Unity Center project is a partial one. They have showers there. They're trying to get to where there will be volunteer dentists, there to help with homeless who might drop in there. But it's not a full drop-in center. But I know that, and I know Councilman Perkins has done a little bit of research in this. It is something that we really need to explore. It adds dignity to homeless, or provides them dignity, provides them services. The thing is, they can access those services. They know where they are. So not only do they go and maybe do laundry and get a shower, but they also know that's where they can go talk to people about some of these many services that we have available. Try to make the connections between what we have and people who need it. Okay, the third element was talking about housing. Okay, so housing first, as you've probably heard of, is a best practice that in a lot of literature these days, basically saying that hey, you got to get people out of tents and into decent housing before you can really talk about trying to break people of addiction or other issues. At the same time, there's a thing called coordinated entry, which talks about how even housing first, if you don't have services and support to go hand in hand with that housing, that's not going to succeed either. So really, what we need is something that's both for those who need that. And it came across time and again that a housing study is needed in Independence to determine the number of all kinds of different types of housing, how many they need and where they might be. I know you all know that because we budgeted for that before, but we had to cut it in our when we had budget problems due to COVID, but that's another thing that really needs to come back. Talk about housing assets. You'll see models. Different people talked about different types of housing types that are in the housing continuum. I didn't throw in there's market rental and there's upper end housing. I didn't throw that in here. I only put in the elements that are kind of relate to this discussion, which are extreme weather shelters, temporary transitional supportive housing, long-term supportive housing, long-term affordable housing, and then pathways to home ownership. We kind of looked at these things. And extreme weather sheltering is that first level of defense. The Sermon Center and Truman Memorial Building, they provide limited hours. It's a place where people can escape extreme temperatures, but they're not an overnight solution, but they are there for a certain line of defense. Next, we have our hotel voucher program that Parks and Recreation Tourism works with CSL, and that actually provides vouchers for people to go to a hotel that has been designated for this purpose, and that's really a great thing. Also, in the last year, several faith-based organizations, churches have come forward saying they would like to play a role in extreme weather sheltering. 6 churches have signed up on to be part of this. Dante Glenecki with Emergency Services is sort of chairing that sub part of this for us, and we're trying to get these people the training that they might need to be part of this to help with emergency extreme weather sheltering. Next thing you talk about this temporary transitional supportive housing. We have some great ones here. We have Crossroads and Hillcrest, and CMH has some units, and I believe Salvation Army is talking about building some more units, but the number is limited, relatively limited, and we really don't have something quite like the Restart facility in Kansas City. This would be the thing that gets you out from a tent in the woods, as Matt had talked about, that first stage of supportive housing that you would have. Restart in Kansas City, generally it's 30 days, during which time you get on a path of going forward and another housing options are identified. But you could be there as long as 18 months, depending on the program that you're in. So we don't have anything quite like that, and that might be a gap in our service. Long-term supportive housing, we don't have a lot of that here. CSL does have some houses, and they provide a long-term supportive help with those. Long-term affordable rental housing, there are a lot of those here. That, let's say if this, now we're not talking supportive here, just talking affordable. And, Hawthorne Place is the largest in Missouri, 745 units, 2,000 residents. And we also have the Independence Housing Authority. And again, as I mentioned, CSL has a number of single-family homes that are also rented and that can also be considered the supportive housing, but also part of the affordable housing picture here. So we really don't seem to have much of a gap there. Then the next thing the last thing in the continuum is pathways to home ownership. And as we have, it's been discussed, there's a small percentage of homeless that are in a position to pursue affordable home ownership under the right circumstances now. There are some of these people that are sleeping in cars. They have income. If it was an affordable option, they would love it. Going back, I should have mentioned that some of the temporary or supportive types of housing that are not traditional houses, like tiny houses. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about here, trying to get people transitioned into true home ownership so they can build up equity, get their pathway into the middle class, and trying to get personal prosperity. So anyway, transitioning renters to homeowners frees up affordable subsidized housing units for others. And as I said, quality infill housing, which I know is a really good point, needs to be quality. As Councilman Steinmeier has pointed out, we don't want to build anything that's not quality. But quality infill housing can revive neighborhoods and contribute to individual and community prosperity. So along those lines, established programs, Hawthorne Place has a family self-sufficiency program, trying to get people money ready for a down payment put together. We have the City Homes program where we put money towards rehabbing a house that gets turned over to an owner. And Habitat for Humanity is doing rehabs of a lot of facilities. New initiatives include this HOOPS nonprofit group that are looking to do infill housing in neighborhoods in Independence. The city's working with Land Trust, Jackson County Land Trust, to see if we can get lots cleared for infill construction. The chamber has a housing committee looking at ideas on this. And of course, you've heard about the Inglewood group trying to do infill housing, quality infill housing. So those all play all the things we need to look at. And the housing study is going to really help us with figure that all out, what the game plan should be on housing. So anyway, summarizing the identified needs on the outreach team, as the chief said, we need to add more special police personnel through Proposition P. We need to look at starting community paramedicine and perhaps add more social worker services. We'll definitely need more social worker services, but whether we add a social worker somehow or we can get it from these other assets that we've now got going for us. Under services and support, we need to, again, the social worker is needed for the evaluation and referral and follow-up to see that people are actually taking advantage of these services. But we also need to explore that idea that crisis center, mental health crisis center locally would really be fantastic for us. And then the idea of the drop-in center. And then under housing, the big one there is we need to do a housing study, which is going to lead to the addition of new quality housing of various types. And so the conclusions, the city can't do it alone. A community effort is needed. Independents can't do it alone. A regional effort is needed. And that we need parallel strategies. Not one thing isn't going to solve the problem. We need parallel strategies to strengthen our outreach team, provide services and support and make them more effective, and develop housing in accordance with a housing plan. So anyway, that was a lot. I'm sorry it took so long, but that's a lot of information. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take a run at it.
Thanks, Marcos. Great presentation. Are there any other comments or questions from the council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
One thing that I would like to see us include in this and have a discussion on is the economic development piece. Okay, so at many layers, we need to start talking about our economy moving forward. That means even if we can get the housing ratio costs down, what's the expectation of the income for transitioning people from rental, where they're fully responsible for it, to housing and paying mortgages? And just because, someone comes in and they're on the streets for many variety of reasons, some of which are limited skill sets. So we have to have that economic development piece to line up with where the city wants to go.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of another parallel path that the mayor's been very involved in is this workforce development. And one of the things that's really great about that we've done in recent months is we got our city and our county designated as a work-ready community. Which that means is that a certain number of employers have said they will recognize ACT Work Keys certificates in their hiring processes. It doesn't say that they're going to hire them, but that they'll take it into account and recognize the importance of it. Meanwhile, we have, with the Job Center, and the school district's doing it as well, but at Job Center, suppose if you're out of school, how do you show that you are a valuable employee or that you can make this transition? The Work Keys program is the way you can do it. You can go there, take this training, take the examinations. You can get a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum certification. And when you take that to a employer who has now agreed they're going to take this into consideration, they can show, I am ready to make that transition from fast food to manufacturing.
Right.
And that's a big part of the puzzle. That's a big part of it. So we've got some of these tools in place. We need to push out the information to the people who need to know that. And so it goes hand in hand, because you're right. Without raising income, you can't do much. But that's another big piece of the puzzle.
And that's an important piece, because you come in, and if they're making $20,000 a year, they pay the rent. They only have so much to live the rest of the month, and that's a huge concern. But it also has effects on our real estate market, our medium income levels, aligning that with the efforts of our EDC team, who's trying to attract capital investment. They're talking about jobs. They want to know what our skill sets are, what kind of labor we have available in the city. this is an important component that we include into our homelessness discussion, how we serve them, give them hand up, teach them how to fish. I mean, I think that we've got to start talking about what we're going to do to move our city forward economically, and they're a component of it. So we need to start looking at it for their benefit as well.
Yes, we've
I
used
hope
that,
we can
the
do
same
that.
analogy, that teach you how to fish, that's the big part of the workforce development philosophy, yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to take this opportunity again to talk about this housing study. I know most, a lot of people that hear, we're going to do another study, oh my God, this is so essential that we really engage these community partners and in doing this housing study so that we can really get a handle on what we have, what we need, what's it going to be, how is that going to fit into our community, not just for today, but over the long haul, so we don't find ourselves later in the same situation where we find ourselves in now, where we have an abundance of low quality housing. And, this study, which, we've been talking about and I've been advocating for 3 years. It goes in the budget, it gets taken out because of other priorities, and I understand that. But when we look around and see all of the people who are interested in this topic, the Chamber, the Economic Development Corporation, all these social services agencies, the faith communities, I mean, we all understand this need, and we all need to, figure out what our roles and responsibilities are. But moving forward without a plan and without doing some research on the housing, I think it's a big, huge mistake. And, it's not something that's going to take years and years and, tons of money to pull together. But we're at a point now where everybody wants to do something. But I really think that we need to revisit this with these community partners, see how we can collaborate on putting together the resources and having a study done, bringing that before our planning commission and any other boards or commissions that would need to be vetted through. I know the Chamber has a housing committee, and really making that a priority to get that study done and put together a plan about how we're going to tackle this. Okay, anything else on this topic? Okay, thank you very much. Much more to come, I know. Okay, so we have a number of Citizen Oversight Committee reports this evening that happen semi-annually. So our first one, Mr. City Manager, is Stormwater.
Yes, and I believe this presentation is to be given by Mr. Les Boatwright.
Hello, Les.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Les Boatwright, a member of the Stormwater Oversight Tax Committee. I'm here representing the group. Others on the group are R. Scott Smith, Chris Heitzman, Tom McDonald, Ali Zarur, Anthony, and Thomas Singleton. If I messed up their last name, I apologize. It's hard to believe that the stormwater tax has been around since the year 2000. And in that time, we've raised over $40 million has been spent on capital projects. In the fiscal year 19 to 20, the Stormwater Fund showed revenues of $4.6 million. And since we reported in April, the Blue Lawn Drainage Improvement Project has begun construction. Construction of that project began in May and includes the installation of over 2,100 feet of storm conduit and 23 inlet structures. The stormwater tax is currently funding 9 projects, either in the acquisition or construction phases, as well as an additional 5 projects currently being designed. So in summary, stormwater sales tax provides for the management, operation, maintenance, construction, and pollution control for the city's stormwater system. It's the opinion of the members of the Stormwater Oversight Committee that the activities, programs, and projects funded by that tax are in keeping with the sales tax initial intent, and that the sales tax is vital to the continued completion of stormwater control projects. That was very short and sweet, but you've had the packet, so are there any questions that I can defer to someone else?
Thank you, Les. Are there any comments or questions from the council on the report? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Independence Parks Commission.
Yes, and this presentation will be given by Mr. Zachary Gall.
Good evening, Mayor Weir. Good evening, City Council. I probably won't be making it that short and sweet, but I'll do my best. The Commission's primary mission is to act as an advisory capacity to the City Council relating to public awareness, facility use, and program participation regarding parks and recreation activities. I am the Parks Commission Chair. Other members include Gail Price, Jolie Austin, Diane Kaiser, Sean Breimer, April Schuler, and Ira Anders. Roger Hershey serves as an ex officio member of the group. In the packet, if you've downloaded that, you can see that there are a number of current projects underway or that have been completed. Those were either emergency repair projects or projects that were already in progress with contractors and vendors lined up to complete the work. And those projects include improvements to Fairmount Park, the Waterfall Park, some landscaping at the Sermon Center, and then splash pad repairs at Rotary Park. A major challenge for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department has been with the, unsurprisingly, COVID-19 and some of the sales tax difficulties. This year is estimated to, the sales tax is estimated to generate approximately $4.2 million for this fiscal year. Due to the impacts of COVID-19, however, the Parks and Rec sales tax for the fiscal year 2019-2020 was down approximately $76,000, and revenue from classes and programs was down approximately $124,000 for a total of $200,000. For the current fiscal year, revenues are down approximately 4%, or around $175,000. Due to this, the operation of, for the park maintenance operations have kind of turned to what they prefer, which is a proactive response and trying to maintain facilities and parks, to kind of a reactive attitude. So in many of the parks, they've turned to disinfecting playgrounds twice per week and restrooms daily since those parks facilities have been reopened. There are a number of other efforts, though, that have been undertaken in the spring and summer, where a lot of activities moved outside, and they were proactive in that regard. The farmers market, for example, saw an average of 15 to 20 vendors selling a variety of produce, baked goods, and now crafts. Approximately 400 patrons come through the market each Saturday, and around 100 come through on Wednesday. At the Sermon Center and Truman Memorial Building, although classes now on a limited basis have moved inside. Actually, you could see quite a few of those classes listed in the programs in the guide here have moved inside with modifications, of course. But as was needed, they moved outside and accommodated the citizens of Independence in that way as well. As weather has permitted, George Owens Nature Park and family programs have proven very popular. We saw an increased popularity and patronage with increased visits for hiking and fishing from individuals and families seeking outdoor recreation opportunities. A lot of those programs have been, like I said, extremely popular. The ESF6, Emergency Support Function number 6, the staff there has assisted in many areas of those operations, including the setup, planning, coordination, and operation of USDA food box distribution events, donation receiving sites, coordination of COVID-19 testing sites, Jackson County mass distribution event, Eastern Jackson County COVID information phone bank, coordination of emergency sheltering, and so on. In closing, it's the opinion of the Parks Commission that the activities, initiatives, and projects supported by the Parks sales tax are in keeping with the program's intent, and that the work of the Parks and Recreation Department continues to enhance the quality of life in Independence. We on behalf of all the residents of Independence, express our gratitude and appreciation to the mayor and city council for your continued interest in and support of providing the best possible parks, recreation facilities, and programs for the people of Independence. So thank you very much on behalf of the commission and the citizens of Independence.
Thank you, Zach. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
Madam Mayor, I just have one. I was just wondering, Zach, in the budget for this fiscal year, are we looking at replacing any of the playground equipment at McCoy?
Well, at McCoy Park, I know there was some of the playground equipment removed. Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about down there
Yeah.
by the 24 highway ramp? I might have Eric Erfer come forward
I
to
appreciate it.
help answer
Thanks.
that question.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Eric Harford, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Yes, Councilmember DeLucy, we did remove that playground. We did have intent on replacing it, but as Zach reported, all of those sort of proactive projects have been deferred.
Right.
So we, long-term, plan to replace it once we're sure that the recovery has stabilized and our funding sources are strong again. We'll replace that back.
Okay, so that's not budgeted for this fiscal year?
No, ma'am, it's not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Eric, you guys do a great job, by the way, so I appreciate that. One of the things that, when I was sitting on your team, your committee there, was we talked about some of the historic buildings, the structures, some of the things, the cost expense of bringing them up just to a level where we were safe and we felt comfortable having people. How are we coming along with that?
Yeah, we have been able to maintain a certain amount of funding for the general fix-its for those homes, to repair the basic infrastructure, things of that nature. Major capital projects for those, just like in park sales tax, have also been deferred, with the exception of the stabilization of the National Frontier Trails Museum. That project is still underway, and we're also doing a study on the water tower as well, to seek out some information on what it's going to take to stabilize that facility.
Great. So, well, I knew it was a daunting task financially, so.
It still is.
That hasn't changed.
Just someone to write you a check, we'll get these things fixed,
That's all
right?
we
So they're beautiful buildings. I just hope that our city understands that they do require quite a bit of cost and maintenance to make sure that they're safe
Yes,
structurally.
and even with those facilities being closed, we still have staff that are going in on a weekly basis, walking the facilities, checking on them, making sure they're still in good shape and operable.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Tourism Commission. I believe Sam's joining us online. Sam? We can't hear you.
I could try this by telephone.
There you
Can
go.
hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Oh. End around on technology, right?
Right.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. A lot of what I'll say tonight, you can refer to your packets as well for additional information, but the Independence Tourism Advisory Board was established by ordinance in 1997, and in 2016 we became a commission. Our primary mission is to serve as the advocate for the tourism industry in the city of Independence, provide avenues for tourism attractions and sites to communicate, form partnerships, and recommend policies and programs that will benefit tourism in our city. It's our opinion that the activities, initiatives, and projects funded by the transient guest sales tax, which is our source of funding, are in keeping with the sales tax program's intent, and that the sales tax program is critical in supporting the work of the department and to preserve our city-owned historic sites and attract visitors to our community. Quickly on the transient guest tax review, the original tax was approved back in 1970, and it was 4%. It was increased to 5% in 1979, and later increased to 6.5% in 2002, where it remains to today. In a typical year, we generate about $1.9 million for tourism promotion and related activities. But of course, with the onset of COVID-19 this year, revenue from that tax was drastically reduced when travel restrictions were put in place beginning in March. and the tax was down, not surprisingly, 56% when compared to last year for July, and then the tax was down 63% compared to the previous year, then bounced back in August to 26% for a combined July-August reduction of 32% compared to the previous year. The Tourism Commission is currently comprised of 9 voting members, all approved, appointed by the City Council. Current members include Chairperson Sam Roche, that's me, Vice Chair Chris Zur. The Secretary position is currently vacant. Steve Cohn, Russ Cannon, Jody Krantz, Michelle Shanahan DeMoss, John Thornton, and Jen Vitella are the other members. Current operating status, I'll say briefly, under the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department, operational support and resources are shared by each division, but funding is not. The transient guest tax is solely dedicated to supporting the promotion, operation, and development of tourism and can only be used for this purpose. In terms of marketing and promotions, all direct marketing was paused in April as we assessed the impact of travel due to COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of time and research went into developing a strategy to determine when and how to effectively market to potential travelers. It was determined to slowly start marketing to local visitors first, then to potential regional visitors in the drive market category. We had 3 focused campaigns, 1 outdoors, 2 general, and 3 history. And throughout the messaging, the mask ordinance, social distancing, and COVID-19 guidelines were included. In July, the governor announced the Show Me Strong Destination Marketing Organization program, through which, under 2 rounds of applications, the City of Independence secured over $1 million in pre-approved tourism-related marketing, focusing on the resumption of activities and the implementation of safety protocols. Funds were able to do such things as have never been done before, such as creating a new platform on YouTube and Hulu. In terms of social media activity, you can refer to your packets for details on that, although if there's any direct questions on that, I'm happy to try to answer those. Sales and services, we worked heavily on mass sheltering preparedness related to COVID-19 in April and May, and there's several things we did in terms of that mass sheltering preparedness. The team secured a proposal for the Sunbeam United International Car Show that will generate 500 plus room nights. We're very excited about, and that's supposed to be held at the Hilton Garden Inn in September of next year, September 2021. It includes a car show, autocross race, meetings and tourism days, etc. Despite the suspension of many normal activities due to COVID-19, we were able to attend 2 virtual conferences. One was the Destinations International, and the other the Student Youth Travel Association. So we did move forward on that. In terms of historic sites and facilities, I know we touched on that here briefly a few minutes ago, but the historic sites have remained closed this season due to COVID-19, and they will remain closed until the spring of 2021. The National Frontier Trails Museum remains closed, with no date for reopening yet set. In terms of historic site programs, the Bingham Wagner Estate and the Vail Mansion did host private events, and they did, of course, actually exceeded city and county guidelines for COVID-19 safety protocols. The Travel Channel's Tennessee Wraith Chasers returned to the Vail for a private VIP fan event, of course, abiding by social distancing restrictions. And in terms of paranormal tourism, as they refer to it, the tourism staff worked with Apex Paranormal, Bingham Wagner Historical Society, the Jackson County Historical Society, and the Vail Victorian to develop a paranormal path, which we look forward to succeeding next year. And site maintenance, tourism funded maintenance crew continued to make small repairs that Eric alluded to the facility's care of historic grounds. The budget currently covers maintenance and basic repair needs. However, as reported earlier, the completed conditions assessment note millions of dollars of deferred maintenance and significant capital funding shortages, however. Our efforts will keep sites open when we do have the green light to do that, but larger repairs and capital improvements must be deferred without more structured, dedicated funding sources. A few of the more notable repair projects concluded this year were, of course, the relocation and restoration of the Pioneer Spring Cabin and the Truman Depot restoration project, which continues on. And we do not have a date yet for the reopening of the Truman Depot. And in closing, we'd like to say that our opinion that our activities, again, are in keeping with the program's intent of the transient guest tax. And we want to express, that as the Tourism Commission wants to express our gratitude and appreciation to the Mayor and the City Council for your continued interest in and support of providing the best historic sites, attractions, and programs for the people of Independence in our region and around the country and around the world. So thank you very much. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Thank you very much, Sam. Are there any questions regarding the tourism report? Okay, thank you very much. Next up is public safety sales tax.
Yes, Mr. Jared Fears will give these presentations.
Hello.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Jared Fears. I'm chairman of the Public Safety Sales Tax Committee. We do have a good active committee. I have to tell you, I haven't been chairperson very long, so I don't have everybody's names memorized. But we do have a good committee, and they're actively engaged. We meet regularly on a quarterly basis, and we had one special meeting since our last report. During our regular meetings, we receive reports from police and fire for public safety sales tax. These, of course, include revenues and expenses for each fund as reported through the respective departments. Our understanding is the numbers that we look at come from the finance department reporting systems and are available through them. On the expense side of things, they include both the expended funds and proposed funds or planned for expenses that they intend to do in the given year that we're working in. We do believe that these funds have been spent in accordance with the public safety sales tax as was approved by the citizens of Independence. More recently this summer, we have begun to receive reports on the use tax approved on August 6th, 2019 under Proposition P. Up to this point, these have been primarily included just revenue information for us, and we've received those to date. We have had significant conversation among the committee members and city staff regarding this. It's fair to say that there have been concerns among the committee as to our role and the clarity of the purpose of these funds and how they can be used. We had those conversations prior to and after the council asked us to review the use of funds for equipment. As I believe you know, we held a special meeting to discuss the use of these funds for equipment in early September. Based primarily on our understanding of the legal interpretation from the city attorney's office as to the ability to use these funds for equipment, we communicated that recommendation to the council. We do understand the council has determined to use these funds only for salaries and benefits, and since other funds are available through the public safety sales tax for the use of equipment. And we will provide oversight to monitor that those are used as the council has determined appropriate. And with that, I'll do my best to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Jared. Are there any questions regarding public safety sales tax? Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Jackson County Animal Welfare Committee.
Yes, not quite certain who's giving him this. Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Mayor, Councilman, my name is Vance Spearman. I'm from District 3, Independence, Missouri. And my report tonight from the Jackson County Animal Welfare Committee primarily concerns the amount of revenue we received from Proposition P. And I'm told we have a slideshow. Which one do I press? That one. Okay, thank you. And as you see, Proposition P, use tax. And as you can read, approved by the voters in August of 2019, 50% of the funds, up to $750,000, will go to the local animal shelter. Collection didn't begin, though, until January of this year. Oversight performed by the Animal Welfare Committee for the animal shelter. And the committee consists of 3 city appointees, which is Tim Watkins, our chair, and Linda Humphrey, our vice chair, and Jack Cardwell. And the 2 county appointees are myself and Cindy Marshall. The revenues for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, beginning with 2019 to 20, the balance was 0 because we didn't receive any funds until January of 2020. Start then. The use tax collected from January to June, $650,906.54. Expenditures is $530,906.54. All that was for salaries with a fund balance of $120,000. Then for the use tax collected from July through August of 2020, $384,604.53. Expenditures, $113,014.60 went to salaries. $40,252.33 went to benefits. $4,100.32 went to utilities. It's the opinion of the members of the Animal Welfare Committee that the items and individuals funded by the Proposition P use tax are in keeping with the program's intent, and the use tax program is critical in supporting the work of the shelter. Any questions?
Any questions regarding the Jackson County Animal Welfare Committee?
I guess, Madam Mayor, I just have one. So the use tax has collected more than the $750,000 for the animals.
Well, in the first, the fiscal year that ended in July, or ended in June, they had $650,000. So.
Okay, so it's not a calendar year, it's a fiscal year.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry. I've lost my screen. Okay, finally tonight is, on the Oversight Committees, is the street improvements.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, unfortunately, no one from the committee was able to be here to present tonight. I know that information is in your packet and online for the citizens as well. We do have several staff members here if there are specific questions about any of the projects.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions based on the information we received in our packet? All right. Next then is our Independence for All strategic plan update.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you recall, back in mid-August, the council met for their annual strategic planning day, took a hard look at our strategic plan and items we wanted to update. Since that time, staff has been working with our consultant on a public engagement outreach campaign. So Adam is going to give you a quick update on how we plan to do some outreach. Adam and his friend he brought with him.
Okay.
All right, good evening. I'll be very brief. So as a follow-up to the strategic planning session that occurred in August, this is just kind of an update and to launch the next phase here, which is the community engagement piece of this, where we'll be going out into get feedback from our residents about the plan, the draft plan, get their comments and thoughts about priorities. Because of where we are with COVID and everything else, doing an online survey is going to be a key part of this outreach. We'll use a variety of all our platforms, social media platforms, our website to get feedback. We'll also be using these kiosks right here, and our plan is to stage these and rotate them around to different businesses in the community, put it at IUC, grocery stores, hardware stores, those types of places, to try to get as much feedback as we can and drive people to the website. So we anticipate this phase commencing this week and then continuing on through December. And then we'll come back with all the feedback we get from those survey results and bring that back to the council to update the plan as needed. Any questions?
It looks great. Any questions from the council?
And so, like, I could really just scan with my phone right there and then take the survey. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Very good. This takes us to our board and commission report. The first item is Sustainability Commission. The recommendation has been made to reappoint Dan McGraw and appoint Brandon Shuey and Jerry Atkins to the Sustainability Commission. Is there any objection to adding this to the next council agenda? Okay, hearing none, Madam City Clerk, you can add that to the agenda. Next is the Independent Square Advisory Board. The recommendation has been made to appoint Yvonne Hall. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, we can add that to the next agenda. Independence Honor Roll Working Group Committee. Recommendation has been made to reappoint Dan O'Neill as the representative from the Economic Development Council and Lori Dean Wiley as the representative from the Independence Chamber of Commerce. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll add that to the next agenda. The Independence Advisory Board of Health, the recommendation has been made to reappoint Dr. Ralph Ruckman and Dr. Matthew Winger to the Advisory Board of Health. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll add that to the next agenda. Public Safety Sales Tax Oversight Committee, Councilman Huff has reappointed as his individual appointment Bradley Mudd. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll add that to the next agenda. We do need to make reappointments to, or make appointments to the Independence Honor Roll Working Group. There are 2 council positions which expire on November 5th. These are currently held by council members Sean Perkins and Mike Huff. Are we discussing that tonight, or are we deferring that to the next study session? It says the next study session, but I didn't know if that was tonight or in 2 weeks.
That was meant for tonight.
Okay. So is there any discussion regarding the appointments of John Perkins and Mike Huff? Okay, then I will assume that means that we are going to reappoint the 2 of you, and we will put that on the next agenda. Before we adjourn this evening, I did want to make everybody aware that as you all know, part of our CARES Act funding that we have received from Jackson County, we are utilizing to do testing here in Independence. So that testing will begin on Wednesday. If there's several events already planned and scheduled, and anybody who is interested and willing is welcome to come and be tested, whether you are symptomatic or not. If you display no symptoms, if you don't think that you've been exposed to anybody with COVID, but you still want to be tested, you can come to one of these testing sites that we are conducting here in Independence. This is a saliva-based test, so there will be no swabbing. You will administer it yourself. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes to come and get the test done, and we are expecting a very quick turnaround on those results. In 24 to 48 hours, you should receive your results. So we do ask you to please register if you'd like to come, so we are sure to have enough volunteers and tests available. So that website to register is indep.us/COVID tests with an S on the end, COVID tests. There's also a telephone number if you prefer to make your reservation by telephone, and all of that information is available on our social media sites and certainly our city website. And we have a press release that went out today, so that should be, we expect that to be published in the newspaper and other media sites this week as well. So this testing will continue for as long as we have tests available, and we'll be announcing those testing sites, times, and dates as we move forward. Anything else this evening, Mr. City Manager?
I did not have anything else this evening.
Okay, we're adjourned.